Nebraska was the fifth largest soybean producing state in 2016, but its average yield of 61 bushels per acre was the best in the nation. In fact, 3 of the top 4 yielding counties in the country were from Nebraska, including Phelps, which tied Piatt County in Illinois for first with 71.3 bushels per acre. Hamilton was third best, Dawson was fourth. As growers prepare for the 2017 season, this week we talked with Nebraska Extension plant pathologist Loren Giesler about the use of seed treatments. We started by asking why soybean diseases seem to have a randomness, as they don't necessarily have a pattern of appearance across the state.
Well, Jeff, I think, and this is really more relating to like our soil-borne seedling disease problems that we see. And really a lot of those are very specific to the field. So that's why we always talk about history and making sure you know what you've had in that field and identified it correctly, because they can vary so much with that, from Pythium to Phytophthora to Rhizoctonia to Fusarium diseases as well.
If we talk about using seed treatments, tell me what you can hope to get out of them. So in terms of how much control can you get versus how much yield can you lose?
I think the biggest thing is with a seed treatment, if you're using it in a field that has a stand problem and it's significant and you know the disease that's there, or if you don't know even, and you came in with a combination fungicide, you can protect those plants, but there's a couple big ifs. Okay, if conditions are favorable for your seedling disease to be a problem, you will definitely increase your stand at that point. How much is going to vary all over the board. I mean, and over the years I've probably seen, maybe even a 25% change in stand with a seed treatment fungicide, or maybe even more. The other thing is how that translates to yield. Mm-hmm. And we know that when we look at population studies and we plant from, studies that planted from 180 to maybe even 80,000, we might not see much different yield in those at all, okay? I would never recommend 80,000, by the way, okay? But the reality is that soybeans compensate. So we may get significant effects in stand, which when we looked at the soybean management field day studies, a lot of our locations had significant stand effects with that fungicide and the fungicide-insecticide combinations. However, when we looked at yield, there was no significant effect. So it's not uncommon to see that, and particularly with seed treatments. So, that's why I guess I would always question the idea that, some say, well, I'm just going to use it for insurance. Mm-hmm. Well, if it's not paying, you don't really need it. Now, that said, there's a lot of growers out there that benefit from seed treatment fungicides, and that's one that if they've had any problems, I would sure recommend using them.
You mentioned the last time, if you were thinking about reducing planting populations, that might be a spot where seed treatments would be a wise idea. Explain why. Well,
the biggest thing there is that if, let's say you're a grower that was planting 150,000 or something, and you're going to go down to, 125 or whatever the number is. When you significantly reduce there, and then if you had a stand problem on top of that, then you're dropping your overall population. So if you were planting 150 and you were losing, 20% to whatever, and then you dropped and you lost 20, you could be to that point where you could see significant loss. Now that said, in our seed treatment studies, we typically will plant those in that 120, 125,000 range, with the idea that if we're going to see a benefit of a seed treatment, it'll show up more consistently at lower populations. When we're at high, we don't see it as consistent.
Soybeans on soybeans, if anyone's doing that this year, are there any related disease problems?
Well, I think, when we look at seedling disease problems, not really. There's not anything there that I would say, oh, it's, consistency and you're going to have more problems. Really, soybeans on soybeans, we tend to think more of our foliar disease problems. So when we're looking at brown spot, or if you had frog eye, much greater risk for those to be more of a problem in that situation.
All right, one last question. We talked about a year ago about some newer seed treatment options. Tell me, another year into the research, what you see from them.
Well, I think the thing that we've seen, and the newest one that has been out there would be on the sudden death syndrome front with the Levo from Bayer. That product, it consistently performs well in fields with significant SDS. The question that we've had for growers on that is, how much do I have to get that return? So I think that's really an individual case. For sure, if you're a soybean farmer that has had a significant battle with SDS, I'd definitely look at using that treatment. If you're somebody that just has small pockets of SDS, I'd really watch that and just kind of monitor and make that decision, but use those resistant varieties or more tolerant, higher scored varieties for SDS in those fields first. And then as you continue to see that area expand, have more problems with SDS, then go in to look at that seed treatment.